Good morning, everybody. Yes, I am up, vertical, moving smoothly through the world. As long as I don't get too crazy, I'm okay. Good to be here with all of you. And yes, this movie this afternoon or this later this morning will get the emotions flowing, guaranteed. The title of the message, my talk this morning, In Rhythm with Spirit. One of the core passages in the movie The Legend of Bagger Vance goes like this. Inside each of us is one true, authentic swing, something we was born with, not taught or learned. It's got to be remembered. It's got to be remembered. And so we go through this story of a young man, a golfer, who at one time in his real young youth was a rising, emerging star in the golf world. He goes off to World War I to lead a bunch of his friends from Savannah in World War I and loses himself in the war, along with many of his friends. And comes back, and the Depression rolls in, devastates the town. And everybody is scrambling around for something to hold on to, trying to find their way back. And so we go through this story about golf, but it's really so much about life. It's so much about us and our own journey to find ourselves and rediscover ourselves. Bagger Vance talks to Captain Juna about finding his swing again. And what we come to understand is very much about finding ourselves, about finding our way back to alignment with our higher power, with God, with spirit, with divine life, and finding our way back to getting into rhythm with ourselves. Because as we talk about a lot, and I talk about a lot, finding that center is not the center that we're looking for, the point of connection that I'd like to walk in is not necessarily a still point, is it? We talk about coming to center, and it's really about finding that point and maybe extending the time that we can spend on that center point as we move back and forth across it. And when we're upset, maybe those swings are a little bigger. And when we're feeling more at peace, maybe those swings are a little bit smaller. Right? And we spend more dwell time, what's called dwell time, on that center, where we're on that line and we feel connected. We feel more in alignment with who we are. And if you want to, just take your hands out and just try this with me. And just move your hand back and forth across. And you can feel that center point if you allow it. And maybe, oh, I'm upset. Oh my God, things are just not quite right, and I've got to go in for surgery, and da 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 da. And breathe. Breathe it back down. And we can feel it. And we can do that for ourselves. If I get out in the world and I get upset and I get all distracted and my brain starts grabbing onto all the things that just aren't going right and aren't going wrong, and the list is over here, but I'm over here, and and all the stuff is going on in my head. And I'm like, what are you doing? Take a breath, stop, break the cycle, breathe. What is one thing I can see? What is one thing I can touch? What is one thing I can identify? Take a breath. And come back to ourselves and say, you know what? I am more than what appears. I am more than what seems to be going on out here. There is one life. That life is God. That life is peace. That life is spirit. That life is my life right now. I am love. I am joy. I am peace. There's an infinite wisdom welling up within me. There's a larger life all around me that I have access to, not just in this moment, but in every moment of my life. And I get to remind myself of all that. I get to stop and be present with these ideas. Ernest Holmes writes this, and the other one. There it is. Thanks, Joe. There is a light at the center of everything. During the ordinary course of affairs, without attempting to, you might see this light. Someday you might look up and there it is. The substance eternal, falling so fine you think it will drift across the sands of time and enclose all objects, only to discover that it falls through them. Imagine going through your life, walking through your world, and all of a sudden seeing and feeling and sensing the texture of that universal substance that is back of everything. What if? What's possible if I can have that level of perception as I'm walking through the world? And he goes on to say, infinite, lighter than light, and brighter than bright, you can look right through it like you can look through a pane of glass. This is the divine stuff of which we are made. You might see it everywhere and in all things. We talk about the presence, we talk about substance, we are this, right? For me, I am the substance. You are the substance, and it takes on an infinite variety of shapes and forms and expressions and experiences. It's like it says in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, in the Gospels. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God, the Lord is one. One. Not two, not three, not four. But this one finds its expression in and through everything. Through all of us. And it's a matter of finding our way back to the expression, back to the experience where we're feeling connected. Because we get so many messages, right? We look with our eyes out into the world, and our world tells us how we're separate. Most of the time, right? I'm over here, you're over there, you're in the seat, you're in the chair, you're outside the building, you're in the car, I'm driving down the freeway, somebody's on the radio, somebody's on the TV. I get all these messages about how we're separate. And yet still, when I take the time to stop and really be intentional and pay attention, then I can remember. I can remember how I'm connected. I can remember that there is only one, and that this universal, infinite one finds its way into, through, around, and as each and every one of us. So, how do I get there? How do I get back to remembering? I came up with a few basic ideas, basic concepts. The first one is to stop trying. Stop trying. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that what I've discovered for myself is when I'm efforting, when I'm really working hard at it, when I'm really working hard at something, I get stressed. When I'm really working hard at something, there's a lot of efforting involved and pushing back against things that I think don't fit. But when I can let go of just of efforting at it, of working at things, and trying to find a place where, or find my way back to being in a certain flow with what I'm trying to do, of what I'm expressing, what I'm experiencing, what I'm trying to achieve. When I find that effortless place, things seem to work better. I think of it like when I'm sitting down to meditate, and all of a sudden, the chatter starts. Now, efforting says I'm pushed back against the chatter. Efforting says, no, 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 we're not doing this. We are meditating. And the chatter's like laughing at me, going, yeah, right, okay, fine. But no, effortlessness says, oh, chatter. Interesting. And then I just open a little window in the room in my meditation, let those words just kind of float right out. I don't attach to them. I don't grab onto them. I don't push back against them. I just notice and I say, okay, that's effortlessness, right? That's me not pushing back against, because by pushing back against, what am I doing? I'm feeding it. I'm amplifying it because I'm giving it attention. So that's effortlessness. The next one is very similar to it, is grasping. Grasping. How tightly am I holding on to the way things are? How tightly am I holding on to, this is the way it's supposed to be? And because this is the way it's supposed to be, this is the way it always will be. And I'm going to hold on to this because I want to keep things as they are, because it's safe and it's known. And I'm going to hold on tightly. Because this is, whether it's comfortable, uncomfortable, or otherwise, this is what's known. And I really am feeling insecure and upset, and I don't want to step into the unknown because that's scary and it's uncertain. And so I'm going to hold on tightly to this. Now, what happens when we hold on tightly to things? We get stuck. When we hold on tightly to stand, what happens? The sand creeps out between our fingers, and inevitably we lose control of whatever it is we think we're controlling anyway. It's like the story of, I heard the story many years ago, and I'm going to do the real short abbreviated version of trapping monkeys in the Amazon. Right? They would take bottles with narrow little openings in the top and put food in the bottom, and they'd tie the bottles with string up in the trees. And the monkeys would come along and stick their little hands down in the bottle and grab the food down inside the bottle. Now, what happens when they start to pull that food back out? They're stuck because they get so attached to having that food that they would not let go. And so the trappers would come along and capture the monkeys because they would not let go in order to set themselves free. How many of us have positions like that in our own lives that we are holding on so tightly that if we were only to just let go and hold it a little bit more lightly, maybe we would set ourselves free and allow ourselves to find our way back to that center point where we can relax, where we can let go, where we can be and experience more freedom. Because we get so attached. I know I get so attached to my own positions, to the way I think things ought to be sometimes, that I can't see. And when I finally let go enough and take a couple steps back away and take a breath, I'm like, oh, okay. Now I've got a wider view. I can see more of the options. I can see more of what's at play. More of the options that may be available to me. And I can relax and go, oh, there's more than what I thought here. This narrow little view. There's a wider view, a bigger picture, more options, more choices for me to choose from in order to move forward. Because so often in our lives we get told all these stories and we buy into all these stories about who we are, about how we're not enough, about how we're limited, about how because I live in this country I'm this way, or because I am this tall or this short or this size or this expression, or I grew up here or I grew up there. And I have all these experiences based on where I've been and what I've done and who I've known, and that is what's created me. No. What's created me are the experiences and the choices I've made. And if we want to go back to the beginning, what's created me is this divine idea of me that hides behind all these limiting ideas I've taken on about me. And if I were to take the time and do the work and do the growth and do the reading and studying and meditating and praying and do the interior cleaning, if you will, that sweeps aside all those limitations, all those ideas of who I've been and who I am based on my experiences rather than who I am based on the divine idea of me. If I get past all of that, what's possible? What's possible is what I say is possible. What's possible is what I can accept as being possible. What's possible is what I decide to do, what I decide to participate in, what I decide to say, you know what, this is what I am becoming today. I'm going to set aside all those little preconceived notions, all those preconceived little ideas of limitation. I'm going to set them all aside and say, you know what? Today, I'm taking a step in this direction, in the direction of this dream, in the direction of this vision, in the direction of this idea of who I am. Because you know what? The universe is working for me. Life is saying yes to me. Again and again and again, we are told it is done unto us as we believe. As we believe. As we embrace more. As we decide to expand what's possible for us within our consciousness. And to decide to dance with life, to get in rhythm with spirit, rather than pushing back against whatever I perceive to be the limitations of my being. Because if I can embrace myself and my life in terms of what's possible, rather than being limited by what has been, that opens up a whole new world for us. When I decide to embrace the idea that Thomas Troward first introduced, saying that the principle of life itself is not bound by precedent. Principle is not bound by precedent. We are not limited by what has gone before. If we were limited by what has gone before, we would not have the handheld computers that every one of us has in this space. We would not be walking around with a piece of technology in our hands that does more than any of us can really imagine, I assume. So how can I look at the world in terms of possibility? How do I get back to this place of saying, you know what? It's all working for my good. Divine life and love and peace and joy and power and beauty, all of this, that is Spirit itself is working for me in this moment. It's backing me up in this moment. How do I move from seeing diversity as division to seeing infinite and magical variety, a tapestry of life, where all of our differences come together, where all of our differentiations come together, where all of our unique expressions come together to create a magical, wonderful, mystical tapestry of this thing we call life. Bagger Vance has something to say about this. He says, you've got to look with soft eyes to see that place where the tides of the seasons and the turning of the earth all come together, where everything that is becomes one. You got to seek that place with your soul. He talks about seeing the field. And if you stay for the movie, you'll get lots of talk about seeing the field. When he's talking about seeing the field, for me, that speaks to this idea that I often talk about, is walking through this world with Spirit as my companion, not only my companion, but Spirit as the foundation of who I am. Walking in the world with soft eyes is a way of walking and seeing where the edges blur. When I say the edges blur, it's like looking at an old soft focus picture, a soft focus photograph, where you don't have real sharp defined edges, but they're softer. There's a wispy little haze at the edge around the images, where everything really just blends together. And that's a way of walking in the world where I'm seeing with my heart, where I'm seeing with my consciousness at a level that says, I know that everything's connected. I don't even have to think about it. It's just the way I see things. It's what Ernest Holmes refers to as that calm and quiet and soft inner knowing, where there is no doubt, no question, no uncertainty. It simply is. And how about I take the opportunity to walk in this world in a way where everything simply is love, where everything simply is beauty, where I look at everything and I simply see the divine expressing itself. And sure, some days that's a challenge. Some days I wake up and I accidentally turn the news on or whatever, or I see something and I get all wound up about it. And it takes me a while to find my way back. But I find my way back. Because I have this knowing that says, I'm going to find my way back to center. The only thing that changes is how long it takes to get back there. And that's the practice. And that will be our practice for this week. Our practice this week is walking in the field of spirit. Walking with the presence happens in the moment. So this week, notice when you are being carried outside of the moment. So when you find yourself taken out of the now, you start future tripping or noodling incessantly about something that happened in the past. Bring yourself back to center. Pause, breathe, reflect. Consider what it was that took you out of the moment, and then just bring yourself back. Take a nice centering breath and simply be still and be in the moment. All right. With that, we have time for all of you. So, questions, comments, your turn. Okay.
Double duty today. Yeah. Bob and I are reading every morning Living the Science of Mind.
Oh, yay.
Which has been very opening for us. But what I was thinking of was that, certainly one of the things is we love everybody. Mm-hmm. We don't get embroiled in these little things. But I hope I won't offend anybody. If I do, I apologize. I can't stand Donald Trump. So I work on that with my spiritual practices, saying, trying to get through it. Well, yesterday he was shot. And as I was watching that, I immediately felt horror and immediately felt great compassion for his family. So it was like a spiritual thing happened that was, this is a man that you don't agree with, but he's still a man. He's still a child of God. Mm-hmm. And that separate your belief system, how you do things, from the fact that he is a human being. He has a family, has a mother, and all those kinds of things. And I just think that Science of Mind helped me see that in that moment, that there's a difference between disliking how somebody behaves and really looking at the central part of who they really are and who I am in this process. So who's to say I'm right or I'm not right? It's okay. And that was just such a helpful thing for me. So that was it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anybody else? Okay.
Can I say one thing? I want to piggyback on that because that's part of our teaching is that we separate the act from the actor. And that's a key component to bring up is to recognize that there is oneness. We are all one, period. Yeah. Thank you.
I get so stuck in that our belief system, that it overtakes everything else.
Opinions.
So this is instead of this whole picture, we can get rid of that noodling stuff you're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And it really made me feel better because when you have a lot of angst, you're all tight. You know?
Yeah.
So now I can just say, well, I don't agree with you, but you're a child of God too, and I wish you and your family the best.
Right.
Which is a big relief to me because I thought I would have said, good.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Victoria. And Jill, thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, let's pray, everybody. Take time to recenter, refocus. And there's only one life, and that life is God. That life is infinite spirit and love and truth and peace. It is a power and presence that we live in and it in us. Each and every one. With every breath we feel it, vibrant and alive. It is the very source and substance of our being, each and every one. And so I know and I speak this word for each and every one here, everybody listening now or later, no matter where we are, where you are, right where we are, God, as this infinite spirit of life, absolutely is. So I speak this word for each of us and anybody practicing their spiritual endeavors, wherever they are, whatever they may be. We are all finding our way back home to a place where we remember, and we are in that place now. We remember now that each and every one of us is love expressed. We know that our life truly is the life of infinite spirit, the life of God. We set aside any thought of lack, of doubt, of uncertainty. We set them aside now and embrace this truth of our goodness, our wholeness, our vibrancy, where we feel peace and love and joy in all that we do. And we know that this spiritual home, this spiritual family that we participate with is truly blessed. And we are a blessing to the community that we serve, each and every one. And so we go forward into this day, into the rest of this week, knowing that all is well, that life is good and very good, as each and every one of us. And so it is.